My child. There is a reason you stopped here today. Out of all the messages you could have seen, out of all the voices competing for your attention, something guided you to this very moment. And what you are about to hear is not an ordinary story. It is a story about a conversation that happened when you were not there. A conversation that started quietly but soon became impossible to ignore. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because before this message ends, you will understand why your name became the center of attention in a way nobody expected. Picture this for a moment. A family gathering, simple and ordinary on the surface. People talking about life, sharing thoughts, discussing plans, remembering old memories. Everything seemed completely normal until someone unexpectedly mentioned you. At first, it was only a passing comment. Just a few words. But those few words changed everything. Heads turned. Interest grew. Questions began to appear. And before anyone realized it, the conversation was no longer about random topics. It was about you. Not because anyone planned it. Not because anyone forced it. But because something about your presence had already created an impression that could not be ignored. What happened next surprised everyone in the room. One family member began sharing things they had noticed about you. They spoke about your determination. They spoke about the way you continue moving forward even during difficult seasons. They spoke about your character, your attitude, and the quiet strength you carry without asking for recognition. As they spoke, something remarkable happened. Nobody interrupted. Nobody changed the subject. Instead, every person listened more closely. Every person wanted to hear more. It was as if they were all discovering the same truth at the same time. A truth that had been sitting quietly in front of them, waiting to be noticed. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because the conversation did not stop there. Another voice joined in. Then another. Then another. Each person added a new observation. A new story. A new perspective. And with every passing minute, the picture became clearer. They were not discussing achievements. They were not discussing appearances. They were discussing something much deeper. They were discussing the impact you leave on people. The kind of impact that cannot be measured. The kind of impact that stays in people's minds long after they leave the room. Then came a moment that changed the entire atmosphere. One person asked a question nobody was expecting. The room became quiet. The question was simple, yet powerful. What if there is more to this person than we originally realized? The silence that followed was unlike anything before it. Everyone began reflecting. Everyone began remembering. Everyone began connecting pieces that had never been connected before. Suddenly, old conversations made sense. Old impressions made sense. Even small details that once seemed insignificant started to fit together like pieces of a puzzle. The more they talked, the more surprising the discussion became. One family member admitted that their first impression of you had been incomplete. They believed they understood who you were. They thought they had figured everything out. But over time, they realized they had only seen a small part of the picture. As they learned more, their perspective changed completely. What they once overlooked became impossible to ignore. What they once considered ordinary suddenly appeared extraordinary. And when they shared this realization, others in the room nodded in agreement because they had experienced the exact same thing. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because the most important part of the conversation was still ahead. The discussion continued for much longer than anyone expected. What began as a simple mention of your name had now become the main topic. People were sharing observations, comparing experiences, talking about moments that stood out in their memory. And the more they spoke, the more one thing became clear. Your presence had created a stronger impression than anyone had realized. Even people who rarely spoke during family discussions found themselves contributing. Everyone had something to say. Everyone had something they remembered. Then came the moment that nobody in the room will ever forget. A statement was made that immediately captured everyone's attention. The person speaking paused before saying it, almost as if they understood the importance of what they were about to reveal. Every eye turned toward them. Every voice became silent. The room waited. And when the words finally came, the atmosphere changed completely. Those words did not create fear. They did not create confusion. They created realization. A realization that made everyone see the situation differently than before. What exactly was said? That is the part we will uncover next. Because what happened after that statement became the turning point of the entire conversation. The energy shifted. The opinions deepened. And a truth began emerging that nobody could ignore anymore. Stay with me. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because the most surprising revelation from your soulmate's family conversation has not been revealed yet. A remarkable silence filled the room after that unforgettable statement. Nobody rushed to speak. Nobody changed the topic. Instead, every person sat there thinking about the same thing. It was as if a hidden truth had suddenly become visible. A truth that had been quietly growing for a long time without anyone fully recognizing it. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because what happened next turned a simple conversation into something nobody would forget. One family member finally broke the silence and said something that immediately caught everyone's attention. They said that every time your name came up, the discussion somehow became positive. Think about that for a moment. Out of all the topics people could discuss, your name consistently brought out stories of kindness, determination, and genuine character. The room grew quiet again because everyone realized it was true. Nobody could remember hearing a story about you that ended with disappointment. Instead, every memory seemed to reveal another reason why people respected you more than you knew. As the discussion continued, someone shared a memory that surprised everyone. It was not a dramatic story. It was not a grand moment. It was a simple observation from a long time ago. Yet that small observation revealed something powerful about who you are. They described a moment when you showed patience while others would have become frustrated. A moment when you remained positive while others would have given up. A moment so small that you may not even remember it yourself. But the people who witnessed it never forgot. In that instant, everyone in the room understood something important. The smallest actions often leave the biggest impressions. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because the conversation was beginning to reveal something deeper than anyone expected. One by one, family members started sharing stories they had never shared before. Different situations. Different memories. Different experiences. Yet every story pointed toward the same conclusion. The person they were discussing was far more remarkable than they originally realized. Every new story strengthened that conclusion. Every new memory added another piece to the picture. And with every passing minute, the respect in the room continued to grow. Then came a question that completely changed the direction of the discussion. One voice asked, "What is it about this person that makes them stand out?" Suddenly everyone had an answer. Some spoke about your resilience. Others spoke about your authenticity. Others mentioned your ability to remain hopeful during uncertain moments. Nobody repeated the exact same answer because each person had noticed something different. Yet somehow all those answers fit together perfectly. Like pieces of a puzzle finally revealing the complete image. The atmosphere became emotional in the best possible way. People were not simply discussing facts anymore. They were discussing impact. They were discussing the way a person can influence others without even realizing it. They were discussing the kind of presence that stays in people's hearts long after conversations end. And as they continued speaking, something extraordinary happened. The conversation stopped being about what you had done. It became about who you are. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because the most surprising revelation was still ahead. One family member leaned forward and admitted something they had never told anyone. They said that before learning more about you, they had doubts. Not because of anything you had done, but because they simply did not know enough. However, over time, every new piece of information challenged those doubts. Every conversation changed their perspective. Every story revealed another positive quality. Until eventually those doubts disappeared completely. The room became very quiet after hearing those words. Not because people disagreed, but because they understood exactly what was being said. Growth in understanding is powerful. Sometimes people need time to see the complete picture. Sometimes the truth reveals itself gradually. And that was exactly what had happened here. The more people learned about you, the clearer everything became. Then another family member spoke. Their words carried unusual weight because they rarely shared strong opinions. Everyone listened carefully. They explained that character is revealed over time. Anyone can create a good first impression for a few minutes. But true character reveals itself consistently. Day after day. Situation after situation. choice after choice. And according to them, every new thing they learned about you pointed in the same direction. Integrity, kindness, strength, consistency. The room immediately agreed. And that is when something unexpected happened. A realization spread through the conversation almost simultaneously. Nobody planned it. Nobody announced it. Yet everyone seemed to arrive at the same conclusion. They realized they were no longer asking questions about whether you were a good person. That question had already been answered. Instead, they were discussing how deeply your influence had already reached without you even knowing. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because the next statement became the most unforgettable moment of the entire discussion. One person quietly said, "Perhaps this connection is more meaningful than we originally believed." The room became completely silent. Not a single interruption. Not a single disagreement. Just silence. The kind of silence that happens when people hear something that feels important. Everyone reflected on those words. Everyone considered what they meant. And suddenly the entire conversation seemed to shift again. What started as curiosity had become admiration. What started as questions had become understanding. What started as uncertainty had become confidence. The family members looked at one another, realizing they had all witnessed the same thing. A discussion that revealed far more than anyone expected. A discussion that uncovered qualities that could not be ignored. A discussion that transformed assumptions into appreciation. But the biggest revelation had not been spoken yet. Because before the conversation ended, one final observation was shared. An observation so surprising that it changed the mood of the entire room. The moment those words were spoken, everyone immediately understood why this conversation had happened in the first place. And that revelation is where the story becomes truly unforgettable. Stay with me. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because the most powerful part of your soulmate's family conversation is about to be revealed. The room had already heard many surprising things, but nobody was prepared for what came next. The conversation had moved beyond curiosity. It had moved beyond first impressions. Now it was reaching a level of honesty that few discussions ever reach. Every person present felt it. Every person knew that something important was about to be revealed. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because the next few moments changed the entire meaning of the conversation. One family member finally shared the observation that had been on their mind throughout the discussion. They said that whenever your soulmate spoke about the future, there was always a noticeable change in their voice. A different level of excitement. A different level of hope. A different level of focus. At first, nobody thought much about it. But over time, they began noticing a pattern. The pattern appeared again and again. And eventually, it became impossible to ignore. The room listened carefully because everyone knew exactly what was being described. As this realization was shared, several people immediately nodded. They had noticed the same thing. They remembered conversations from months ago. They remembered small comments that seemed ordinary at the time. They remembered moments that suddenly made perfect sense. One by one, memories resurfaced. And as those memories came together, a picture began to emerge that was far more meaningful than anyone expected. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. The discussion became even deeper when someone asked a question that nobody had considered before. They asked, "What is the biggest difference we have noticed?" The answers came quickly. People spoke about the positive energy they had observed. They spoke about renewed optimism. They spoke about confidence. They spoke about the way your soulmate seemed more motivated, more focused, and more inspired whenever certain topics were discussed. None of these changes happened overnight. They appeared gradually. Yet once they were noticed, they became impossible to ignore. One person shared a story that instantly captured everyone's attention. It involved a simple conversation from the past. Nothing dramatic. Nothing extraordinary. Yet during that conversation, your soulmate had spoken about values, goals, and dreams with unusual enthusiasm. At the time, nobody understood why. But now, sitting together and reflecting on everything they had learned, the reason seemed obvious. Certain people have a way of bringing out the best in others. Certain connections inspire growth. Certain relationships encourage people to become stronger versions of themselves. And the family was beginning to realize they had been witnessing exactly that. The atmosphere in the room became warmer with every passing minute. It was no longer a discussion filled with uncertainty. It had become a discussion filled with appreciation. Family members who rarely agreed on anything found themselves agreeing again and again. Every new observation strengthened the same conclusion. Every story pointed toward the same truth. And that truth was becoming impossible to deny. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Then came the moment that nobody expected. A family member who had remained mostly silent throughout the discussion finally decided to speak. The room immediately became quiet because everyone knew this person rarely shared opinions unless they truly mattered. When they began talking, every word carried weight. They said something that changed everything. They explained that character reveals itself over time, not through grand speeches, but through consistency. Through everyday choices. Through the way a person treats others when nobody is watching. Through the values they carry regardless of circumstances. And according to everything they had heard, everything they had observed, and everything they had learned, they believed your character was one of the strongest qualities being discussed. The room fell silent. Not because anyone disagreed, but because everyone was thinking about the significance of those words. A compliment about appearance can be forgotten. A compliment about achievements can fade. But recognition of character stays with people forever. That is why the atmosphere shifted so dramatically after those words were spoken. For the first time, everyone seemed to realize that this conversation was not simply about possibilities. It was about genuine respect. Genuine admiration. Genuine appreciation. And then something even more surprising happened. Several family members admitted that they had originally expected the conversation to last only a few minutes. Yet here they were, still discussing the same person long after they intended to move on to other topics. Why? Because every answer led to another question. Every story led to another memory. Every observation led to another realization. The conversation had taken on a life of its own. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because the most unforgettable statement of the night was still ahead. As the discussion approached its end, one final question was asked. A simple question. A powerful question. If we had to describe this person in one sentence, what would we say? The room became completely silent. Everyone thought carefully. Nobody wanted to answer too quickly. This question mattered. And when the answer finally came, it left a lasting impression on everyone present. One voice quietly said, "This is someone who brings value wherever they go." Immediately, others agreed. Not because they were copying the answer, but because it reflected everything that had been discussed. Every story. Every memory. Every observation. Every realization. Everything pointed toward that conclusion. The conversation was no longer about assumptions. It was no longer about first impressions. It was no longer about uncertainty. It had become a recognition of qualities that had already revealed themselves over time. And as the discussion finally came to an end, one thing became clear. Nobody left the conversation with less respect for you. They left with more. Much more. Yet there was still one final revelation that had not been shared. One final detail that transformed this conversation from memorable into unforgettable. A detail so surprising that when it was finally spoken, every person in the room looked at one another with the exact same expression. And that final revelation is what we will uncover next. Stay with me. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because the most powerful moment of your soulmate's family conversation is still ahead.